Welcome back to I Speak African. I'm your host Yanu, and in this episode we will explore Sinners, Ryan Coogler's latest film that seamlessly blends horror, history, and music. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, go out and see it. This movie has everything. It's funny, it's sad, it's scary. It's also it's very deep rooted in African history and even Black American history, and even it touches up on Asian history and even Native American history. So if you haven't seen this movie, go out and watch it. Now, this movie takes place in 1932 Mississippi. The film follows twin brothers Smoke and Stack, and they're both being portrayed by Michael B. Jordan. Now, it starts off by showing that they return to their hometown to establish a juke joint for the local Black community. Now, for those of you who don't know, a juke joint is like a bar. It's pretty much like a bar and a nightclub kind of mixed together, or it's like a nightclub. Now, the movie starts off with a young man walking into the church. That young man later turns out to be their cousin Sammy, and when he walks into this church, he's like all bloody and stuff, and they show him with 4 large claw marks on his face, and it's gonna later foreshadow what happens later in the movie. Now, Smoke and Stack are well known throughout their city of Clarksdale, Mississippi, and they're known as the twins, or the Smokestack twins. And they decide to buy this old sawmill from this white man named Hogwood. And Hogwood turns out to be the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, but y'all don't figure out that's not revealed until later. And even in the movie, they're like, "Yo, are y'all the Klan?" And then he's like, "Nah, the Klan is done. Like, there ain't no more Klan around here." So it turns out that the twins were originally in Chicago, and they had to leave because they were like stealing from other gangsters. It turns out they were also working for Al Capone. So they were stealing from the gangsters. I mean, that's not really touched up on the movie, but it's mentioned. And so on their way to open the juke joint, they realized they needed to like recruit people. They need somebody to play the blues, somebody to be the bouncer, and just other people, somebody to make a sign. So they recruit like their friends that they know. So one of the people they recruit is Delroy Lindo, and he's and if you don't know who Delroy Lindo, he was in Romeo Must Die. He was in The Good Fight. What else was he in? He was in a lot of good like movies and TV shows. But he's a drunk in the movie. He's a drunk blues player, but he's really good. He's just always drinking. So and I personally never get tired of seeing him. I love seeing him, and he's such a great actor. I love seeing him in all the movies. Now they get him because they need a blues player. They also recruit Omar Miller, who played in Ballers. That was a show that came on about 8 years ago with The Rock. He doesn't get a lot of roles, so I'm really glad to see him in this movie. He played Cornbread. Cornbread is supposed to be the bouncer for the juke joint. They also recruit Sammy, who is also a blues player and pretty much the main protagonist of this movie. But in real life, he's an up-and-coming actor, so this is like his biggest role, which is good. Now, Wumi Mosaku, if you guys don't know her, she played Hunter B-15 in Loki, and also Ruby in Lovecraft Country. So when I saw this, I was like, yeah, like this role fits her perfectly, because Lovecraft Country in the movie Sinners also took place during the Jim Crow era of during United States history. And this movie has a lot of Lovecraft vibes to it, like vampires and mysticism, and so it turns out that her character Annie is Smoke's wife. Haley Stansfield is another character in this movie. She's Stack's like ex-girlfriend, and the reason why they broke up is because she's supposed to be playing like not biracial, but like I think quarter racial in this movie. Like her mother's biracial, and she has black blood in him, but because of Jim Crow era laws, she passed as a white person. So Stack was like, it would be better off for you to marry a white man and go live a white person's life than to live in Mississippi with me and being labeled as a black person, your life would be harder. So he pretty much sent her away because like he loved her too much and he didn't want her to suffer as a black woman. But she loves him too much, so she came back. And then there's Pearline, who is Sammy's love interest. And if you don't know who Pearline is, she played Bella Real in The Batman, and I think that's she played in another movie, but I don't know. And so there's a very funny in the movie. There's a very like it's an ongoing joke. And Pearline, when she first meets Sammy, she's like, "I have a husband," because he asks her out on a date, and she's like, "I have a husband." And when she sees him again at the juke joint, she's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Where's your husband at?" And she's like, "He's not here." And it's a joke. She's like playing hard to get, but Pearline does not have a husband. Like, there's no way that in 1932 a woman is just gonna go out to a juke joint by herself. No, she never had a husband. She was making it. It's a joke. She's playing hard to get, but I see a lot of people online saying like, "Oh, where's her husband?" Like, no, she didn't have a husband. It's an inside joke. But what I love about this movie is the storytelling through music that Ryan Coogler uses to connect it all. Like, there's this one scene where he shows, like Sammy's playing the blues, and he's showing like through the blues like this whole like montage of different music genres. Like he's showing rock and roll or rock. He's showing country. He's showing rap. He's showing R&B. He's even showing, Native African like music. He's showing Chinese music because there are two Chinese characters in the movie. He's showing a lot, and he's just showing how the blues influence all these different, or better yet, African music influence. When black people were brought here from slavery, they continue their music. They continue using music in order to survive, the hardship of slavery. And then they were able to, that music was able to grow into something more, which gave birth to other genres of music like blues and country and rock and roll and rap and all this stuff. So I really think that was like one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Now, it shows that the music that Sammy is playing attracts vampires, especially this very old Irish vampire named Remick. Even though he's not, he doesn't look old. Like vampires don't age. Once a vampire is turned, they stay that age forever. So, but he's an old vampire. You can tell by what happens at the end of the movie. So I like the symbolism and how Ryan Coogler, his interpretation of vampires. I like how he makes it so that vampires have to be invited in, because that's a huge part of vampire lore. Vampires have to be invited in. Like, apart from vampires apart from vampires not being able to stay out in the sun, they also have to be invited into somebody's house or somebody's place of dwelling, or just any kind of building that a human owns. They can't just come in. They have to be invited in. So I'm glad that he he kept that as far as when it comes to the lore of vampires. Now, there's also another scene that really it stuck with me. Like, Sammy is a preacher's son. They call him Preacher Boy. That's what he says. Now, the last scene where Remick is trying to turn Sammy, he's baptizing him in the water. Now, what he's trying to do is he's performing an unholy baptism. And he's baptizing Sammy because Sammy's if he's successful in turning Sammy into a vampire, Sammy will now be reborn as a vampire. Hence the word baptism. But it won't be a baptism through God, it will be a baptism through Remick, who is no longer a child of God because he was turned into a vampire. And also, as I stated earlier, Remick knows that Sammy's musical gifts will attract more vampires. That's what he's trying to do. Now, they also stated in the movie that Annie's character is very important too. And I think that's because she knows about vampires. They don't really touch up on it, why she's so important. All we know is they didn't want her to die. And when Smoke kills her because of the promise that he made, they go crazy because they needed Annie. They don't explain why they needed Annie, but I'm assuming it's because like she knows a lot about the dark arts. She knows about vampires, and she was talking about something called the hate. So I think that that's why they want to keep her alive, so that they could figure out how to make some kind of protection against sunlight, or something, some kind of concoction that can protect them from being killed, or maybe making them immortal, like invulnerable. I don't know, but it stated that she was very important to their cause, and by Smoke killing them, that was a loss for them. Now, like I said, the movie was great. If you haven't seen it, go out and see it. I think right now it's 100 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's doing crazy at the box office. As of right now, I think the total sum of the movie, both domestically and internationally, is like $162 or 161 million. Not 161, 161 million. So it's gearing up to beat, like, right now it's the 7th highest box office movie of 2025, and I'm pretty sure by like end of this week it will probably be like maybe close to 200 million, because I looked it up and I know that Snow White only gained 190 million, and it had a much bigger budget. So I know this is going to do much better than Snow White, which is kind of sad in a way. But let me get back to this. Yeah, it was a great movie. Ryan Coogler should definitely win an Oscar. If he doesn't win an Oscar, that's crazy. Like, this movie it's not just a movie. It's so much more than a movie. It has so much culture in it. It's showing such. It's like every scene shows. It provides the viewer with a message. So he better win a nomination. If he doesn't win a nomination, that's crazy. I can get them saying like, oh, they're gonna snub him for the Oscar, but he at least better win a nomination for Best Director. And same thing with Michael B. Jordan. He needs to win a nomination for Best Lead Actor. Now, speaking of Ryan Coogler, Variety, like I think when the movie first came out, or the first week that it was out, Variety gave the movie like some very weird, backhanded compliment, which was Sinners has amassed 61 million in its global debut. It's great for results for an original R-rated horror film, yet Warner Brothers release has a 90 million price tag before global marketing expenses, so profitability remains a ways away. Now, that's a weird way to give somebody a compliment. So actor Ben Stiller comes forward and he's like, in what universe does a $60 million opening for an original studio movie warrant this headline? Now, I agree with Ben Stiller. I actually like Ben Stiller as an actor. I think he's funny in his movies. I liked him in Dodgeball. But the comments that people are saying I find them kind of weird, because it's like, they're like, oh, Ben Stiller deserves to come to the cookout. And I find it kind of strange, because it's like, did you learn nothing from the movie? And I'm not saying Ben Stiller is a bad person or he's a vampire, but just because he said something that is logical does not mean he should automatically be invited to the cookout. Now, if you look at this movie, you can substitute the cookout for the juke joint, and the whole entire plot of the movie and the moral in some sense was like, stop trying to trust everybody. Like, you need to know somebody before you invite them into your space. This whole movie was about making something, like the whole idea of the juke joint was making a safe space for black people. That's what it was. And by hypothetically inviting Ben Stiller to the juke joint, it's no longer our place. And so I'm watching this movie and I'm hearing everybody say this, and it's like, that's what the vampires were trying to do. The vampires were trying to manipulate everyone by being nice, and they were like, oh, we come in peace, we just want to sing music, we just want to, drink a couple of beers or whatever and have fun. We're not going to do anything malicious, we're not going to do anything crazy. But behind the scenes, they're vampires, and everyone was like, nah, you're being sketchy. Like, and he was like, "Y'all give me the willies." And it's like, yeah, like just because somebody's nice to you doesn't mean you should let them into your space. Like you need to know them first. And it's just like, don't be so quick just to, because somebody's being a human, showing you some, affording you some respect, that you just automatically invite them into your space. Now another scene I want to bring up was how Remix, how him trying to seek refuge actually helped out, Smoke. Now, at the beginning, when Remick was running from the Native Americans who were trying to hunt him, he was all burnt. And when he went to the house of Bert and Joan, who were KKK members, it was, he came to them, was like, "Help me, these Native Americans are trying to kill me." Now, initially, when they saw him, they were hesitant because a man came to them burnt, and they're probably wondering, how's he still alive? But anyway, it's ironic because once he comes to them and he tells them, when he's like, "Give me refuge," at first they're hesitant, but then once he says, "I'm being chased by Native Americans and I have money," now their racism and their greed, it comes into play, because now they're not even thinking about, hey, he could be dangerous. And it turns out he was. He turns them to vampires, and because he turned them to vampires, he then, when they all become vampires, they tell Smoke, hey, they were former KKK. Their grandfather is the guy who sold the sawmill to you. He's going to kill. Their plans were to kill every single black person and the 2 Asians in the juke joint when the sun came up. So now Smoke is able to ambush all of them when they arrive, and I think that all that part was like one of my favorite scenes, because when they initially meet him, he's like, "No, I'm not KKK," and they knew he was KKK. I think that's the reason why they brought out those guns. They probably knew something was going to happen, But I personally do not think that I personally don't think that Smoke is dead. I think they're going to make a sequel, which they should. This movie did so well. It wouldn't make any sense not to make a sequel. Also, I'm really proud of the deal Ryan Coogler made. He'll receive the rights back to this movie from Warner Bros. Within 25 years, which is really good. So that means as this movie continues to make money, he'll be able to get residual income, which is very good. But thank you for joining me for another episode of I Speak African. Make sure that you like and subscribe to my channel for more content. I can be reached at ispeakafrican12 at gmail.com, and these same episodes can be downloaded on Spotify. Thank you and stay blessed.